Welcome to our virtual public meeting. We're all learning how to conduct virtual public meetings in this format, so please bear with us. We have a few notes to begin with. Please note this is an open meeting and is required by DC code. This meeting is being recorded and the recording will be made available to the public. The video file with both audio and video will be shared on the website, the project website, and on DDOT's YouTube channel after likely early next week. The meeting is also being live streamed to DDOT's Facebook page. If you do not wish to have your voice recorded, please do not ask to speak. You may enter any questions or comments in the chat and Q&A, which we will review in the next few slides. So I'll go, the next slide shows if you're using audio or calling in, everyone is on mute. You cannot unmute yourself. We can unmute you during the Q&A and comment period. This helps ensure the meeting runs smoothly and there are no auditory disruptions during the presentation. To request to speak, you will need to raise your hand, use the raise hand feature, which we will cover shortly. If you've called in by telephone, you raise your hand by dialing *3 and unmute yourself by dialing *6 once we unmute you. If you have a comment or question during the presentation, you can send it via the chat feature. Note, if you've called in by telephone, you cannot access the chat. To send a chat, click chat in the bottom right side of the WebEx window. A new panel or window will appear in the send to field. Select all panelists and then click the text box to type your question or comment and press the enter key to send. DDOT must ensure that all of its programs, activities, and public meetings are conducted in compliance with Title VI and Civil Rights Act of 1964. This act ensures non-discrimination based on race, color, and national origin. You can hold your phone up to the QR code in the right corner to pull up the Title VI form if you'd like to start doing that during the presentation. It will also populate at the end of the meeting and you can fill it out in that platform as well. Tonight's agenda, we're going to review, do a basic summary of kind of what we discussed in workshop 1 and 2 and some of the information we've received. We'll do an update on the 10 locations for immediate implementation. We'll discuss the 30 near-term recommendations and go through the thought process and some of those, the draft recommendations. And then we'll discuss about how to stay involved or provide feedback. As a reminder, the study boundary is quite large, expanding from Spring Road down to the Convention Center and generally flanked along 16th Street and Georgia Avenue. Incorporates Mount Pleasant as well over to the west. It incorporates several neighborhoods within the space, and we are going to be focusing on quick installation tactical projects to increase safety conditions. Any projects that come out of the study can be implemented within 1 to 3 years. What type of safety concerns can we address with this study? We're focusing on smaller pinpointed projects such as narrowing roadway crossings, improving crosswalk visibility. It does not include projects such as adding a sidewalk or larger scale capital projects that would require doing large scale vehicle analysis or any type of signal retiming elements along those lines. Projects will focus on low hanging fruit, safety concerns that can be implemented within 1 to 3 years, such as like improving crosswalk, striping visibility, and I'll discuss it further in this next slide. Or in a few slides. The expected outcomes from the study will identify immediately implementable concrete actions, as we already have some of the tactical projects installed. In order to achieve the quick implementable projects, we're focusing on those near-term actions. Projects such as curb extensions, crosswalks, left turn hardening are responsive to immediate needs, and they're also easy to install. They can also test solutions that can be built out in a future project. 5 of the 10 installation locations include art and curb extensions. And while art is supplemental addition to the project, pedestrian improvements can be enhanced through placemaking, creating a more welcoming environment. So today we're going to do an update about those, the 10 immediate installations, and then share the concepts for the ideology for the remaining 30 projects locations. Here's a recap of the process and schedule thus far. The first public meeting was held February 16th, where we received feedback on safety concerns and encouraged attendees to utilize the online survey and interactive map to pin specific intersections. The 10 immediate installation locations and draft 30 intersections were shared at the second public meeting on March 9th. Based on the feedback from both meetings in combination with other safety indicators, 10 immediate installation project locations and 30 additional near-term locations were finalized. The 10 immediate installation projects will begin installation or have begun installation, should be completed in the next few weeks during the summer. And during the meeting today, we will discuss the designs for the 30 near-term intersections, which can be implemented within 1 to 3 years.
All right, so I'm going to do a quick review of the toolbox and project selection. If you want a little bit more detail, we do have a recording of the public meeting number 2 and the slides up on our website. So you can look in a little more detail there. But as a reminder, our toolbox, like Kelsey said, it's a quick install, it's tactical elements, mostly paint, flex posts, and signs. So it includes curb extensions, left turn hardening, improving crosswalks, adding pedestrian refuge islands, chicanes, which are a way to slow down traffic, mid-block micromobility corrals to add some additional parking to the curbside, mini traffic circles, and bike boxes, along with other types of bike infrastructure. And we'll go into a little bit more detail in a minute on how these are actually applied to each design and in which cases we include them or don't. Oh, one other exciting thing, we've been talking with Capital Bike Chair about different locations that we've identified that could include a new bike share station. And so the project selection process, again, if you would like more detail, refer back to public meeting number 2, but this is how we selected the intersections that we moved forward with. We began with every intersection in the study area. It's about 400 intersections. We removed ones on in locations where either DDOT is already working on a project, or in locations where these tactical tools that we're able to implement with are not practical or could not address the safety issues in those locations. After that, we incorporated community feedback, which includes ANC resolutions. It includes past Vision Zero concerns, TSA requests, as well as the feedback provided during our public meetings and on our website after. And then we looked at data points that can indicate either potential safety risks or past safety concerns. So that includes crash data, that includes, you know, intersection speeds, type of control at intersections, that sort of thing. And then we did a suitability screening to see if these, to look at the top 100 locations and see if the concerns that we cited at those locations could actually be addressed with these tactical tools. And then we did a final selection as we started going through to really look more critically at these if, you know, if the location could be suitable for this project. And so you may notice a couple of locations are different than what we had showed at the second public workshop, and that's a result of this final selection process that we've gone through.
Thanks, Emma. And a brief update on the 10 locations for immediate implementation. At the second meeting, we shared the 10 locations. Based on polling from the first public meeting, there is a desire to focus on commercial areas, schools, biking infrastructure, and roads with more than 2 lanes. This information, combined with the project selection process that Emma just outlined and an emphasis on spots that are more quickly implemented, identified these 10 locations. So we have 5 of those locations on the map, which we're just putting in the tactical intervention. And then the other 5 included a tactical intervention with art. And most of these locations are being installed or are partially installed currently. Here's an example of an installation at 6 and O. You can see before it was really wide. It kind of opened up into much wider at the intersection, which created a longer crossing distance. So it's been narrowed up with the striping, and we're also, this is a little outdated because we've now put a micro mobility corral in the space that's kind of etched out in white on the left side of the right image in the after image.
All right, so today the real focus is on the 30 near-term recommendations that we will be implementing in the next 3 years. We won't be going over all 30 of the plans, rather talking about our design process and showing some examples. All of the locations and all of the intersections are up on our website for you to take a look at. We do have an office hours next week where we will be open to discuss some specific concerns about locations. And Kelsey will get to different means of feedback beyond the office hours in a little while. So here are all 30 of the locations broken up by neighborhood. Those with the stars next to them have been added since the last public meeting. And like I said earlier, those have been added based on additional suitability screening, as well as public comments that we received during the last office hours and since the last public meeting. We briefly went over the tools in our toolbox earlier, but now we're going to go through how those get applied as we develop the designs for each location. I want to note that the designs that we're going to be showing here are just representative of how the tools are applied, but at each intersection, the actual application may vary based on the function and geometry of that specific location. So the first thing that we are looking at is bringing the on-street parking up to DDOT standards. And what that means is moving no parking signs to be located 25 feet from the edge of the crosswalk for our DEM. And this distance closely follows federal standards and is put in place for a couple of reasons. One, it increases pedestrian visibility, making sure that vehicles and pedestrians see each other as they're approaching the intersection. But it also allows drivers to maneuver into parking spots without encroaching on the crosswalk. And so as you see here, we've moved the edge of the parking 25 feet from the crosswalk. And in addition to the signage, we're striping this no parking zone and adding flex posts to ensure the spaces are not used for parking or loading. That ensures that this space functions how it's supposed to and is continuing to meet the standards. It also helps narrow travel lanes, minimizing excess pavement and slowing vehicles as they approach the stop. And where possible, we're tightening the curb radii between approaches to slow vehicles and teeing up intersections to get them as close to a 90-degree angle as possible. This again helps slow vehicles, but it also increases visibility between approaches. So, when a vehicle is turning right, they can see the cyclists and or pedestrians that are crossing that crosswalk as they go. I'll note here that this curb extension that looks like a creamsicle orange color actually is supposed to reflect tan paint. rather than the hashing that you see in different slides, as well as towards the top of this image. The tan paint we're looking to use in locations that have a significant amount of roadway being reallocated. It's aimed to help match the sidewalk color to help clarify which spaces are for vehicles and which spaces are for pedestrians. Additionally, we're bringing crosswalks and bike lanes to DDOT standards, which means adding high visibility crosswalks and bike lane track marks through the intersection. This just improves awareness and visibility of cyclists and pedestrians, especially at uncontrolled crossings like this one on 15th Street. Lastly, we're looking to add left turn hardening at locations with high turning volumes or wide left turns. This helps slow down turning vehicles, as well as guiding a tighter turn through the intersection. And as you know, as I've said like 10 times by now, the slower the vehicles are going, the more likely that they're going to see pedestrians and cyclists. It would also increases visibility for cyclists and pedestrians that are crossing.
And I'm going to discuss the final recommendation locations. We have, in order to discuss, more easily discuss the 30 locations, we have broken them into 5 clusters or buckets of where we're using similar tools from the toolbox, as Emma described, based on a lot of times roadway geometry or other elements and factors that may be going on at an intersection. Those 5 location clusters are standard intersection, which means you're using a lot of the typical elements. The next is access to a park, which those are directly accessing a park, not adjacent to, but can be seen as like a park entrance. There's tee up, which is, as Emma described before, it's essentially making an intersection so a vehicle would be making a 90-degree turn rather than coming in at an angle, which can encourage speeding and also makes it more difficult to see different types of conflict points with pedestrians or cyclists or even other vehicles. There's grid shift. In some areas of the district, you see that the grid doesn't completely go, the roadway grid isn't continuous, and it may shift slightly. Georgia Avenue is a good example of where you see grid shift, as it's difficult to drive in some places continuously on the same road. And normally you approach Georgia and then you jog either north or south to get, if you're wanting to move in a through maneuver. And the last are complex intersections, and these in many cases incorporate a lot of essentially all of the other buckets. So standard, access to park, or grid shift and tee up. So this is a zoomed in image of the northern half of the study area by bucket, and it's not a surprise that a lot of these you may see the same bucket along the same road type of roadway, and that's normally because they're similar geometric configurations. I'll show the southern half, and these numbers are also not an indicator of like where these intersections were in the ranking. It is more so an identification tool. So like we can know that 11 is, you know, O and 15th at this location. Next, I'm going to discuss kind of those the clusters or buckets, and explain how something in a standard, the types of tools that you would use in a standard intersection, and how those could be applied to several intersections. In this case, we don't, an hour isn't a sufficient amount of time to review each intersection in depth. That's why we did try and share some of these in a sneak peek early, and there will also be time after this to go on the website or talk to us in another platform, whether it's the whether it's, whether it's the office hours or some other platform. So in this location, we have a standard intersection. What makes it standard is that it comes in at a T. It's 90 degrees on all locations. You can put in what people are used to seeing with a curb extension, which is how it's rounding the corners in most places, rounding the corner to essentially making sure vehicles are making the full maneuver rather than cutting it close, which can also provide them a chance to see any conflicts in advance rather than having to brake suddenly because you didn't see someone. So I'll move to the next one. So V and 11th is an example of a standard intersection. 15th and in looks a little different. But is still identified as a standard intersection. And a lot of the locations on 15th Street that we proposed are as well. The reason this is standard is that the geometry is still pretty similar to what you would have. It's just 15th Street happens to be northbound for all 3 lanes. It also has a cycle track, but you could see if this was a roadway that had traffic going north, south, east, west, you could easily put in a similar infrastructure. And we've essentially put in that standard infrastructure where it makes sense for the roadway conditions on a design like this. The access to park locations, as I mentioned, are areas where the intervention directly improves access to a park. It's not just adjacent to it, but things that you will see in designs that are in the access to park bucket are improving the walkability or making sure there is a pedestrian connection if one doesn't exist, improving the visibility of that connection. Another element of that is in making sure if there is a bicycle connection, that is also up to, like the standard of what we would see, make sure that if it can have a buffer, it has a buffer, that it is connecting appropriately and allowing for vehicles or public transit or pedestrian all to use the same space. So these are the type of standard elements and tools you would see in an access to park location. The tee up bucket, as Emma noted, essentially is making sure that or trying to make skewed intersections more standard and have 90-degree angles. And that's again to make sure that cars can't take the corridor or turns at a higher speed. It also then should be had on the roadway. It also allows for it greatly improves the pedestrian crossing distance in a lot of these locations. As you can see here, the essentially 3-lane crossing is now you're just crossing 1 lane. So that increases the visibility a lot as well. And we have in many cases, so in this condition too, we have the no parking sign is on Princeton is really large anyway. It's a large 1-way street. So you'll see in some areas, and Emma showed one earlier on these tee-up locations that have what may appear like a lot of space, but that's because in order to create the 90-degree angle, you're normally having to, you're getting rid of a lot of space that would have a wider angle on a turn. So you'll see a lot of the tee-up locations along angled streets such as New Hampshire or any of the avenues really have a lot of create these conditions where you would want to have a tee-up. Grid shift, as I mentioned before, is where a through road frequently shifts, does not connect completely through it, like intersects a roadway. And Georgia Avenue is an example in the study area where a lot of roads hit Georgia Avenue and do not continuously go through. So what we have tried to do in these locations is include the curb extension elements, some hard left turn hardening, but also adding essentially this intersection. Currently, you're not exactly sure when you're a pedestrian or a vehicle where like where you should be, because it is a really large intersection. So what we're doing in a lot of these grid shift areas is trying to clarify where you should be expecting a vehicle or pedestrian or a cyclist, or and essentially making sure that they are making that full maneuver. And those are the types of things you're going to see in a grid shift type environment. The complex intersections were clustered together predominantly based on the number of conflicts in close proximity. Generally, locations with a confluence of roadways. This bucket can almost be seen as having pieces of all the buckets, like TF, grid shift, and standard. For 3 of the 4 complex intersections, we also created a base design and an enhanced design. The base design can be implemented with minimal further engagement, but the enhanced design needs additional analysis. For example, it may be removing a turning maneuver, or proposing a different type of lane width configuration than currently exists. Those things require a different type of analysis, and they can't be installed quickly without doing that analysis. Enhanced designs may suggest changes to turning movements, and they'll need, as I mentioned, the further community engagement. Like all of the 30 locations, the complex intersections were selected through the project selection process. While the focus of the study is quick implementation, we found value could be added at these select locations through modal network enhancements. The enhanced designs build off elements from the base design and can extend beyond the spot improvements, improving bicycle and pedestrian connectivity to existing networks, as well as making modal maneuvers more predictable. So you can see in the base design here has doesn't have all the same things with enhanced design. The enhanced design does improve on understanding where you may be expecting like cyclist maneuvers to go or vehicle maneuvers to go. And so that's something that would require further analysis in general, but that's something that we had saw that rose to the top at this location that could be an enhanced benefit to over the base design. The base designs in general, we feel more comfortable could be completed within 1 to 3 years, and the enhanced designs may be on the outer edge of that just for because analysis needs to be done. And that would also include further community engagement as well. Here's another example of a complex intersection. Like the intersection before, the design makes modal maneuvers more predictable, and enhanced design goes further to incorporate more bicycle connections connecting to an existing bicycle network. So on the image to the left, this is kind of what could, in the base design, this is what could be implemented without having to do any further analysis in terms of like it's keeping all of the lane configurations, etc. The image on the right is proposing a protected bicycle lane, changing some turning maneuvers, and so would need to go through further public engagement as well as analysis. This table here shows the near-term treatment types broken up into those 5 buckets that I mentioned. This is also on the website, so you can see it in there, and it's also reflected in the colored dots on the map as well. We're going to put, the draft designs are on the website now for all of the locations, so you can go on there, and we have a survey that you can fill out that's right next to where the map is, and the designs for the treatments as well. Stay involved, essentially. So there's provide feedback. It's actually one of 4 ways. You can email me, Kelsey Bridges at dc.gov, or the project website email. You can reach out to your near Northwest 3 ANC representative, if you're, or your ANC in general, and then it will be relayed to us in that fashion. You, after to the meeting today, since all of the designs are up, you can check them out and fill out the online survey. And again, you can still send us an email if you have further questions. And then next week, we have office hours from 4:30 to 6:30. And if you haven't been to the office hours before at the previous sessions, it's very informal. Essentially, the team is on there to answer any questions. There's no presentation. You just call in, and if you have a specific comment that you would like to or intersection or something about the projects you would like to discuss, you can do it on that platform, as we understand that not everyone's always available when we have the public workshops, or sometimes would like to have a discussion in a different platform. And comments for the project are going to due by July 15th. And we will work to incorporate those comments on an ongoing basis as well as we receive them. I just go to the next page as a reminder. We're opening it up the conversation to the chat. Again, if you do have any questions, this is how you can do that in the chat box. So go ahead and check it out.
Here's one quick question about office hours before we get to the meaty questions. Are office hours intended to discuss the specific plans you presented on, or can we join and talk about other intersections issues we're observing?
The office hours are intended to discuss the near Northwest 3 plans. If there is a location in the study area that you would like to talk about rather than sending an email, we can you can also discuss it if it is in the study area. We can try and relay that to the appropriate folks.
All right, so I think we'll go through the Q&A and the chat first, and then we'll go to folks if they would like to raise their hand. So we have a question here. The immediate installs don't require an NOI because they aren't removing legal parking spaces, correct? So that is correct. All of the immediate installs that are being installed right now, we're just bringing them up to standard. So they did not require an NOI, but some of the ones that Kelsey had just shown and some of the 30 that we will be putting in over the next 3 years may require that.
And the point is taken to we now have also established relationships with this project and the ANCs. So as we move forward with installations, we can also give ANC commissioners a heads up. But that is correct.
Here's another question about the standard that we talked about, 25 feet from the edge of the crosswalk as of standard for parking. And so that's correct that in some cases 40 or more than 25 feet is required, and that mostly deals with speed and control of the intersection. So most of the ones that we've shown, in fact, all of the ones that we have done, we've only kept 25 feet, but there are some cases where 40 feet or more than 25 feet is recommended or required. What is the best way for an ANC to submit comments on a specific proposal?
So there are, if you want to, we can share the list for each ANC in the study area has selected someone to communicate with us through the Near Northwest 3 study. So we can, if there is a specific ANC, we can look to find that for you now if there's one that you're wanting to know who the representative is. But if you reach out to them in general, they should be able to put you in touch with the correct person in the ANC.
I will put in the chat a link to our summary from our first public meeting, which includes the ANC representative for each ANC that is on our in our group community advisory committee. So that way you can look and see who to reach out to. Do any of the plans include pedestrian-only walkways? There is one, which, Kelsey, if you want to show the map of all of the locations. So one of the ones in the category of park access, where we're accessing Malcolm X Meridian Hill Park at the north.
I'll go to this.
Perfect,
This is
yeah.
probably easier. Yeah.
We're adding a pedestrian walkway, as there is not currently a pedestrian walkway between the intersection and the entrance to the park. So that's one that we're excited about, and also came out of a community request at our office hours. So we really appreciate that. All right, we have one about flex posts getting knocked down. Kelsey, do you want to talk about the durability and of flex posts and what we do about it?
Yes, I know that the tactical materials aren't always as or don't have the same aesthetic, or even maybe appear to require more maintenance than if this was like a physical concrete curb extension. But the fact that it's tactical, allows us to see if it's working, if people like it, or whatnot. Also, if a flex post is down, it kind of it signifies that maybe there are issues here and vehicles aren't taking the full maneuver, or depending how it was knocked down, like, was someone driving through that lane? Did they pull over to the side of the road still? It essentially can, it indicates to us that this is something that's needed at this location. We do have, in terms of like maintenance, we have, DDOT has an asset management team that does have these and can go out and fix them. We also have a few other contracts in place that allow us to go out and also make repairs as needed for these locations. We're also, as we've been implementing more of these throughout the district, been learning what works better, what works not. For example, a lot of the locations in this study were offsetting the flex posts slightly. So you still see the white line, but there's, and they're right by the white line, but it allows for a little more flexibility in making those maneuvers. So it allows for you to correct if there is, like maybe you were swerving, make a slight adjustment, and then you hit the flex post and it goes down. So we are learning things and also looking at new materials. The tactical toolbox that exists is so large, and we are working to figure out what works. But we do, flex post is something we use a lot and something we do have the ability to maintain.
It's ever expanding. I feel like every year there's a new tactical tool. So
yeah.
And another question is about the principal arterials, and if we could do another project like this but focus on the main arterials. I guess the biggest problem is on the same note of, just talking about how the materials we use get knocked over. The tactical tools at this point are not really ready to address the safety concerns on a lot of major arterials. That being said, we have the Move DC plan, and we do have other avenues for addressing safety concerns on major arterials. This project is narrow in scope, and that has pros and cons. Pros is, we're already seeing some of the installs being put in place, and we'll be able to get all of them in the next 3 years. But the con is that, we can only address specific types of intersections.
And to add on to that too, Emma, one of the tricky things that we deal with in terms of having an impact with some of these tactical installations is what the parking restrictions are. You really can't have a curb extension if there isn't parking there 24/7, which it also makes it difficult. Not that there can't be some fashion, like if you're talking about bicycle lane separation or adding in like a sidewalk or something along those lines. But in terms of the curb extensions, that is an obstacle with the parking restrictions.
Yeah, great point. All right, we have another question about the tan paint on all curb extensions. So right now, curb extensions are pretty new, and so there's not really a set standard. The places where we're looking to use tan paint, like I said previously, are places where we would be taking out a lot of the roadway. Maybe Kelsey, if you want to flip to 11th and Vermont, which is a good example of, if all of this was hashed out pavement, I think visually it would make the space very confusing and possibly less safe than what the curb extensions and everything are trying to address. And so the tan paint helps, I think, drivers and pedestrians understand the difference between pedestrian space and vehicle space. It looks like we've answered all the questions in the Q&A. If anybody has, we have a couple more minutes. If anybody has a question, you're welcome to raise your hand. All right, looks like Gordon Chafin, I think we will, oh, Molly, I think that you have to unmute.
Everyone.
All right, you're unmuted.
Thank you. Thanks again for doing this work. This is really awesome, and I appreciate especially those weird intersections that DC has so much of. My question is, when you show the enhanced condition where, for example, you've created a protected bike lane, how operationally, how are you guys moving that project? Is that since it's a protected bike lane, should we go and ask the Sustainable Transportation Division about advancing that project, or how are you just going to execute that?
Yeah, no, that is, so we have been, as we've been working through the designs, thinking about which teams internally at DDOT should take some of these on. For example, something like, to your point, with a bicycle lane, whether it's a PBL or something else, is probably suited for the Sustainable Transportation Group. But some intersections may be able to work through our Vision Zero team or another team. So that is something that we have been thinking about, because we do, like an implementation timeline of 1 to 3 years is something that we are taking seriously. And in order to do that, we need to think through who's going to take these to the next step. So we have been working with the Sustainable Transportation Group on a lot of these, as well as our traffic engineers, Vision Zero, et cetera. And if you, I guess, for commenting on it, you can send the comments, I think, to us And you could, I think putting it in the survey or sending an email is good. And even if you think that this is something, you can even note in there that you think this is something that would be good for that team. We have it documented here from the conversation on the meeting, but if you want to further essentially move that forward, that would also be useful because that's something we can share.
All right, next we have, well, let's get this Q&A question real quick. Are there near Northwest 3 intersection treatments included in the Vision Zero summer safety campaign? So that is actually a separate list of intersections and safety improvements. And so you get more, right? That's a whole nother list, and then we have this list, but they are separate.
And some of those too, Emma, are also arterial based, right? Like, so we are trying not to like overlap in our efforts as well. So not all of them, but some of them are.
And we have a question from David Menny.
Hi, everyone. This is David from Councilmember Nadeau's office. Want to echo the thanks for these draft designs. It's sort of hard to pick a favorite. And we've been reviewing and we'll submit some comment. Somewhat relevant to the last question, and we can go into more detail later on, but I think there are a couple locations here, mostly associated with those more complex intersections that would probably benefit from being expanded a little bit into other capital projects or things that are more on the corridor level instead of the intersection level. I'm thinking of 11th Street since we were just looking at it. We had spoken with the ANC a while back and haven't come back to it recently, but there's been some interest in closing that gap on 11th Street between, I guess it's Florida Avenue and Vermont Avenue. And so it would be good to sort of work the work you've already done here into that. Because as I understand it, doing a corridor project, the most complicated part is the intersections, especially something like that. So like if you all doing the complicated hard work can then be slotted into another larger project and accelerate that, that would be great. I don't know if that's something you're considering in that coordination with other teams.
And just to make sure I'm following, you're saying close this portion of Vermont between 11th and Florida?
No, not closing it, but like there's the bike lane continues. There's
the bicycle gap
and south of S. So closing that gap.
Understood. Yes.
Yeah, that's just one example, though. Like there's a couple others.
There's others.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons this essentially moved into the enhanced zone, right? Is we were like, this is a missing, like it's in the middle of like a bike lane, and then it drops you into kind of a scary, like large intersection, whether you're a pedestrian or like trying to maneuver through there. I mean, we are definitely open to having conversations with other groups or projects that are going on, or if the ANC has also been in discussions about other elements. Definitely something we want to pursue. And this is one that I think there's two 11th Street intersections that do require some analysis, and that's something that we're wanting to get on if all goes well, and proceed with shortly after the study ends.
Yeah. I think besides this 11th in Vermont, I don't want to take up too much airspace here. There are a couple others, like I think it's 11th and V, which is sort of by your definitions here, like a pretty simple installation. I think it's just some curb extensions, but that would be implicated in some more significant 11th Street projects. So I think there's a few like that, not saying we should like put the brakes on it to push it past the 3-year window, but that might be able to, like, you've done the hard work of the intersection stuff and then plug that into other capital projects.
Yeah. Well, I think the the concept behind these two, depending on like when it can be installed, is like these are tactical now, but ideally do get rolled into a capital project. So
Okay.
depending on how far off the capital project is, right?
Mhm.
That's the thought process behind this, right? Is that like, do you know, like we could try and get this in sooner, or you could wait until it's, you know, a full curb.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of what this project is, and the study in general is trying to figure out like how can we get some of these gaps in quicker given just constraints that exist. And so I think that's definitely worth a discussion on timeline of the capital projects for sure.
Mhm. Okay. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Mhm. Thanks for coming. Thanks everyone. Yeah.
While I'm still able to unmute myself, I just want to add the connection on 15th and Euclid, the pedestrian walkway there is amazing, and I know a lot of people will be very thankful.
Oops, let me go. Yeah. No, that one, it was, you know, like Emma said, someone came, this one wasn't automatically flagged with the original assessment just based on you know, the different indicators. It's not, you know, the roadway crossing isn't over multiple lanes, you know, across this particular point, but someone was like, hey, I know how to, you know, like this is a huge issue. And also I think I can even make a tactical design. They like I don't know if they're on today, but they sent like a PowerPoint that essentially we tried to modify. So yeah.
There is a bit of misalignment of Euclid as it crosses 15th there, similar to some of those
Yes.
other intersections. So I don't know if there's anything that can be done about that in the same scope, but just wanted to bring that up too.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm done.
Yeah, no, thanks.
I think we have time for maybe one more question if anybody has one. All right. Well, if nobody has any more questions, you know, feel free to take your time looking over all of the intersections on the website, provide feedback either through the survey, emailing us, or stopping by office hours next week. We're really happy you all joined us. We're really excited about these. Keep an eye out as the immediate installs are showing up, and the artwork is also on the website and is starting to get installed. So, yeah.
And one quick like addition, Emma, because I can never end something 50 without doing it 50 times. Is a reminder, like if there are other projects that you know going on or anything, like as David was mentioning, capital projects, just like note that these aren't meant to take the place of those. These are meant to be able to put something in an interim that could then be made a part of something larger. So if there is anything that you're pushing for or you know about that are you know, like a block or adjacent to these, you can definitely put that in a comment, and then we can, you know, like essentially start some also internal coordination that way. So yeah, please fill out the survey. There's one, the email. There's also a more simplified version of the survey on the website now that's just like pick your intersection and add comments. So you can take it multiple ways. We're not getting rid of both surveys. They're both there. So appreciate everyone coming on, and we'll send out an email once we have the presentation posted as well. And you should come check out 14th and Meridian because they're putting in the art installation, as Emma alluded to. So.
I wanted to add really quick. Thank you, Kelsey. We've had a couple people come to us and the council member about the ones that are being installed right now. Not like upset or anything. It more the tone of like, this is fine, but I had no idea this was happening and what's going on. So like, if there's any more to be done on posting in certain places about like, hey, these immediate installs are happening, here's what this is. Just wanted to push that feedback along.
Yeah, and like most of them are. I think the only one left is, or there's like, are either partially or fully installed. But we will, for those remaining ones, reach out and also let you know when the art component starts too, because I think people may have interest of knowing why like someone is painting the street by them, and it may also appear strange. So
Great.
appreciate that feedback, and we'll do.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Final goodbye.